Hi, so we're going to talk about heart rate and how we can use it before, during, and a little bit after training sessions.
For example, if you're coming in for a session, you'd want your resting heart rate for that particular day probably below 20% of your lowest resting heart rate. From 0 to 10 is adequate recovery, and from 10 to 20 is in moderate recovery, and higher than 20% is inadequate recovery.
So we use that as just one parameter compared to other things that we ask the athlete about sleep and mood and fatigue level and soreness and things like that. So then as you go into a training session, using heart rate can be an important parameter for sport play or strength and conditioning. I find it to be most useful when you're doing intervals, when you're doing the conditioning portion of your strength and conditioning session. You can kind of gauge how well your heart rate recovers from that high intensity bout. The idea here is that you want to get as much output as the input that you're putting in, and so if you're not recovering completely or adequately after each interval, you can't put in your same amount of input. If you're getting more fit, your heart rate will recover quickly at the same intensity of training or same interval or same amount of work. That's another way you can see whether you're kind of improving your fitness level.
If your heart rate is coming down in a minute, if it's coming down less than 12 beats per minute, it could indicate that there's some underlying pathological condition. But the normal range would be 15 to 20 beats per minute. The heart rate should be going down in a minute. And if that's not happening, you probably not have another exercise or another your sports training that particular day, or maybe just having lighter intensity exercise for that particular day.